Welcome to Go Get Great, the podcast for aspiring entrepreneurs and ambitious small business owners. I'm your host, Brittany, owner of Brittany Miller Socials and mother of 3. Go Get Great is all about helping you make life and business work together. You'll learn about the fumbles that helped get me and my guests to where we are today so you don't have to make them. So come join the journey with Go Get Great. Good morning and welcome back to another episode of the Go Get Great podcast. I'm going to be flying solo again today, and I thought that an interesting topic would be helping you figure out what your needle movers are so that you guys can really focus on, this whole adage that we hear all the time, working on your business instead of just in your business. So you guys know that my word for 2024 is action, and I really attribute a lot of my action items to identifying my needle movers finally and prioritizing them kind of, I'm going to say above all else, although that seems a tad dramatic. So before we dive in today, I want to start by saying, what I consider needle movers to be. So I think of my business a little bit like a car, and the more I push my foot down on the gas pedal, the more the speedometer moves, and the more the speedometer moves, the faster and more efficiently my business grows. So I consider my needle movers any of the activities that help me move the speedometer in my business. They get me one step closer to my goals. So needle movers are activities that help you grow your business, not just the busy work that you spend all of your time doing, and not client work. So there's a very big difference between working in your business to the point where, you've filled a 40-hour work week, you've done things, but you've done a lot of things that maybe are not helping you move towards your bigger goals. So each business has different needle movers depending on the different goals that they have. And your needle movers will often change depending on the stage of business that you're in as well. So, and I'll talk about some different examples of needle movers for me and kind of how they've changed over time. But the activities that some people will also call these core activities. I just call them needle movers. The core activities that you do will shift, like I said, depending on the phase of business you're in. So when you're first getting started, you're like out there, you've got your feet on the ground, hopefully. You're likely hustling, you're doing all of the networking and the telling people about your business. And then as you kind of build that client base, now being 3 years-ish, 2 and a bit years into my business, I've kind of developed a little bit of that, and I'm shifting my focus to things to help me work towards my goal of generating a little bit more passive revenue because of my upcoming maternity leave. You guys all know that. And then also moving more towards product and service offerings that really light me up and get the best results for my clients. That's something else that I want to kind of focus more on and shift a little bit away from some of the things that I don't enjoy as much, that are very time sucky, because I want my business to work for me, not me work for my business. I would like to be able to take vacation and spend more time hanging out with my kiddos evenings and weekends and kind of take a step back from that hustle phase. So the things that I'm doing now are very different from what I was doing when I first got started in my business. So my needle movers right now, the top, we'll say 3 to 5 things that I focus on, kind of, again, above all else. We put that in a little bit of air quotes because my focus is still making sure that I hit my client deadlines, but it's keeping me more focused on the things that are going to get me to my goal faster of having that time flexibility and that income sustainability for my business than just doing all of the things. And trust me, I have done all of the things in my business. And really, this was a process of trial and error, of learning what works well and what doesn't necessarily get me the results that I'm looking for. So my needle movers align with my goals, but also how I generate income for my business, which is a key piece of this as well, because your business is only going to be successful and you're going to continue working in your business if your business makes you money. So the activities that move the needle in your business need to work you towards your goals, yes, but they also need to result in revenue generation. Otherwise, they're not really needle movers because your business needs to make money. So I have a couple that kind of all rank at like a similar level. The first one being podcasting. So I want to make sure that I'm producing one podcast episode each week. And that is because we use our podcast as a portfolio when Grayson goes to take on podcasting clients for kind of his section, we'll call it, of the business. So podcasting is one of our revenue generators. We make money by helping people set up their podcasts if they're looking for support, just to kind of deal with the tech overwhelm and then the initial piece of it. And then we also make money because people want to not have to edit their podcasts and find social media clips and all of those things. So podcasting is one of our revenue generators. Therefore, producing a podcast each week to demonstrate that we know what we're talking about and we're actually good at it is one of my big needle movers. And as an added bonus, I actually really love podcasting. So it's one of the things that is pretty easy for me to do. But within the world of podcasting, it's not just recording an episode with a guest or doing my solo episodes. It's doing kind of all of those other things, which are actually some of my other needle movers. But it's creating the social media content that promotes my podcast and grows my audience and introduces more people to us as podcasters. And it's sending the emails to remind people, hey, I've got a new podcast episode. And you guys both know that social media and email marketing are two of our other revenue buckets, we'll say. So podcasting is a big one. Social media content. I am really, and I've talked about this many times before, but a practice what I preach kind of person. I'm not going to tell you to show up and post every day on social media if I'm not showing up and posting every day on social media. That being said, I've been sick a lot lately and I haven't been posting as much, but I really try and make sure that I am consistent with my social media content, creating content that is exciting for you, that teaches you, that helps you do things. And it also helps grow my audience too, because obviously that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. And I noticed a distinct correlation between when I post more, my following grows faster. So the more that I can post, the more my following will grow, the more potential people will, hire me or purchase a course, kind of all of those things. So social media content and creating it is something that is a needle mover for me. I want to be very consistent with that because also the better results that I get, the better results that I'm able to get from my clients. I am always I'm going to say try it before I buy it kind of person, but like I want to get the results first and then put those strategies in place for my clients. And a lot of what I sell, and I'm going to put that in air quotes, but a lot of what I talk about on social media are tips that are working for me. And a lot of the resources that I sell, whether they are downloadable resources in my shop or the courses that I create or the one-on-one services that I offer, have come from me trying something a bazillion times, finding out what works well, and then giving you the shortcut answer to do it for yourself so that you get to skip all of that trial and error. So posting on social media, I try and do sometimes 7 days a week, sometimes 5. It depends on kind of the phase of life that I'm in right now. During launch phases, I definitely post a lot more. Like I said, I was sick for the last little while again, so I wasn't posting as much. It was more down to like 3 to 5 social media posts, but I want to try and post at minimum 5 times a week for my actual business. And then I also have 3 to 5 posts each week that I do for my podcast. So I actually post somewhere between 5 and 10 posts a week, but on my actual Brittany Miller socials page, not all of those posts go there. So 5 posts a week for Brittany Miller socials, and then a separate 3 to 5 posts for my podcast, only a few of which actually end up on my Brittany Miller socials account. So now that we got that confusing little piece out of the way, podcasting, social media content creation are 2 of my big needle movers. And then the third one I've already mentioned, and that is sending emails, because email marketing is also one of the services that I offer. So you can hire me to set up your email marketing platform, help you create a lead magnet, get your list in there, create your email templates. I'm working on an email marketing course right now. I'm very excited for that. That'll be email marketing for beginners. So it'll be the walkthrough instructions of how I actually do an email marketing setup so that you could do it yourself. for a fraction of the cost because I'm not doing it for you. And then I also offer ongoing email management. So that's companies that pay me to send out their emails regularly, help them generate income and awareness and things like that for their business. So I also need to be doing that for myself so that I know what works and what doesn't. And also because in general, sending emails generates money for my business. And we talked about that being a really important thing. So I try and aim for, I'm going to say 1 email a week, somewhere between 4 and 5 emails a month, if you want to categorize it that way. Usually I try and send an email out each week, pending not being sick, about the new podcast episode that I release. And then I also try and do a monthly newsletter, which you guys usually know comes out at the beginning of the month. And that's more of like a tips and tricks. This is what's working in social media. Here's how you can make your social media easy, better, faster, stronger, all of those good words. So I try and send that out as well. So sometimes that's in addition to. And then if I'm doing like a launch phase or I'm promoting like a new product or service, you will get more emails from me that way as well. Or if you're new to my email list, you get like my email welcome sequences. But a lot of that is like 4 to 5 emails a month. On like a month where it's not super hopping, 4 to 5 emails is kind of what I'm sending out. So creating one podcast, sending 4 to 5 emails, and then creating 5 to 10 pieces of social media content. Those are like my core activities that I need to do for my business to see my business grow each week. Once I kind of finish some of those things, and again, I still hit my client deadlines, so I have client work that I'm doing in addition to those things. Once I'm done those, my I'm going to call them secondary needle movers. So they're helping me move towards my goal, but they're like the less frequent, less repetitive projects. This year I've added Pinterest to my list. So that's technically social media content, but at the same time, it's very different social media content than what I'm creating for like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok kind of things. So that comes next. I would say that's kind of like the fourth thing on my list. I'm trying to be more consistent with that. We're going on 2.5, 3 months now, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. Not necessarily seeing the results yet, which is why I am working with a Pinterest strategist. But that's now a needle mover of mine that is new to my business. That was not something that I focused on in my first 2 years. And then kind of after all of that is tackled, so I spend most of my week creating content. Just doing all of those 4 things takes a long time. And then my client work usually fills up the rest of it. So whether that's client calls or writing emails for my clients, or lately it's been a lot of content plans. I've been doing a lot of the 90-day marketing momentum maps. I've got one that I just wrapped up, 2 more that are like in the works. I've onboarded the clients. I'll be working on those in the next 2 weeks. So probably about the time that this episode comes out. And then I've got another one kind of lined up that I've got to do after that. And then I've done quite a few in the last few weeks for other clients as well. So a lot of my time is spent working on the 90-day marketing momentum maps for my clients. Oh, that's fun. I just had the absolute daylight scared out of me. There's a bug climbing up my microphone stand. Cool beans. Anyway, back on track. So once I kind of finish my content creation for the week, which takes several hours plus my client work, I'm a little bit more hit and miss with what I'm considering this needle mover, and that's working on resource and course creation. So you guys know that I just said some of my goals are to take time off during maternity leave. In order to do that, I need to really automate my business. So that's technically not resource or course creation, but something that I've been working on a lot lately, building those email sequences that will run in the back end. I have been doing so much email marketing too. I probably should, like email sequence writing, probably should have added that as a separate bullet point here. But so whether I'm building email sequences and like writing those evergreen things, or I'm creating new resources, you guys know that I just recently launched, and I hope you've downloaded and enjoyed my, and I have forgotten the actual title for it, but my email setup checklist, something about email marketing success. Spark Your Email Marketing Success, I think is what I called it. I just launched that one recently. I'm also working on a new podcasting checklist resource because when I asked you guys what you wanted, those were the two things that you wanted. You wanted to know how to set up email marketing and how to get started with podcasting. So I was like, all right, well, we'll start working on resources for those then, since I've got a couple that are social media related. And resource creation, the actual resource itself does not take very long for me to just like sit down and get the information out and make it look nice. But it's all the other pieces that go along with it. It's building, you know, the opt-in pages for them, and then the thank you pages, and then writing the email sequences that go after them, which is why I've been doing so much email writing lately. But I know that it's a good thing to do, and that the more that I can do now, the easier it will be for me to take time off when the baby gets here. And the more kind of passive and residual income that my business will be able to generate, because usually within those sequences after someone downloads a resource, spoiler alert, usually I'll try and sell you something. And I know that sounds so sleazy, but it's really not, because it's just, you've got this initial resource and this is great, but this is only going to get you so far. And you know, here's the next step. And a lot of times those are like I consider them my low ticket downloadable resources, and they're like $20 to $40. So it's like, we're not breaking the bank here, but it's like the next step in the, okay, now you've done this, here's the next piece of it. You know, if you want a one-on-one option or you want me to do it for you, here it is. But usually those options are, unless it's a course, and then those are a couple $100, my one-on-one services are like $1,000 plus. So I'm just trying to give people options to help you get the results that you want within whatever budget you're working in. So I've been working on those resources. You guys know that I launched my course recently, Profile to Profit. I'm working on another email marketing course right now. So those are all of the needle movers that I do when I'm not doing content creation. So it's like, okay, I've got my client work done for the week. I've got my content creation. We've checked all of those boxes. Now we transition and spend as much time as we can working on resource creation and course creation, so that, you know, in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever it is, my business will have all of these things in place to kind of help me, again, take more time off, spend more time with my family, generate more consistent income. So for me right now, those are my needle movers. Like I said, I am 2 and a bit years into my business. Technically, I'm in my 3rd year of business, but my business is only 2 years old. Isn't it weird how we say that? Some things that I've done in the past, or that might be more relevant to your business than maybe my business. But like when I first got started, that pounding the pavement was networking events, like all of the time. I spent a lot of time in networking events. Now I have a little bit more, I'm not going to say consistent income, because my income is still not consistent, guys. Total transparency there. But I'm just in a different phase where there's only so many clients that I can feasibly help before I go on maternity leave. So going to more networking events and lining up more clients is not something that's going to help my business, because those people that I line up are going to be waiting for multiple months. So I've just kind of stopped doing networking events right now. And it also just doesn't really fit with our life with the kids in school and all those wonderful things. Excuse me. Maybe for you, it's not networking events. Maybe it's, or it is, but maybe it's virtual networking events, or being active in certain Facebook groups that help you find clients. So what is it that you're doing that's actively generating revenue for you? Your needle movers might be different than mine. You might not be doing email marketing, and that might not be a revenue generator for you. So you might be doing more of these like Facebook groups and like cold emailing people. Been there, done that too. Whether that's cold emails or cold messages on social media, maybe that's the phase of your business that you're in right now, and that's your needle mover. You spend, you know, an hour or 2 each day even messaging people going, hey, do you want to work with me? That's still a needle mover. Maybe you're more into blogging, and a lot of your clients and your traffic comes from, you know, Google and SEO and all those wonderful things. Blogging's not something that I'm worried about too much right now. That'll be maybe a year 4 kind of project. Pinterest, I already mentioned, because Pinterest and blogging kind of go hand in hand. Usually if you're creating blog posts, you're creating pins to promote the blog posts and drive the traffic from Pinterest as well as from Google. So that could be something that you're working on. And if you're doing that, chances are you're spending multiple hours working on that. That's still content creation. It's just a different form of content creation. Maybe you have your own Facebook group that you run and a lot of your clients come from that. So instead of just, commenting on other people's posts and being like, hey, I can help you, you have a Facebook group that you're running yourself. That is a lot of work. I've done that, not for Brittany Miller Socials, but for something else. But that's still a needle mover because it's generating revenue for your business, but you have to be doing it consistently in order to see those results. So those are just some other examples of things that you could be doing to move the needle in your business. Maybe it's cold calling. Maybe you're physically picking up the phone and calling people to get your clients. That is a needle mover. Maybe you're out wandering around town handing out flyers. That could be a needle mover for your business because that generates revenue for you. Maybe you've outsourced that to someone else and maybe you're managing the person that does that for you. That's something. Maybe you're working on Google ads or you're running Facebook ads and you're really paying attention to all of that. Those are all needle movers too. There's so many different types of needle movers. Like I said, it's just for me and my business, podcasting, social media content, creating emails, and then working on these courses and resources are the things that are best serving me and my goals in my business right now. So really thinking through what is it that you want to see from your business in the next 3 to 12 months, and then breaking that down and be like, okay, well, if I want to launch a course or I want to start a podcast so that I can monetize my podcast in the next year, I'd say you probably need a longer timeline on it than that, but maybe that's your goal. It'd be like, okay, well, when I'm done doing my client work, maybe your needle mover is brainstorming a name for your podcast and creating your cover art and outlining your first few episodes and getting all of those set up. Maybe that's your needle mover right now because that's the goal that you have. And maybe your goal is generating consistent income without having to spend all of your time working one-on-one for clients, kind of like what I'm working on right now. So maybe you're going to start creating downloadable resources or you're going to start working on launching a course and you're doing all of those things. So again, some of those examples overlapped with things that I'm working on, but figure out what your goal is and then break down the individual steps to help you achieve that goal. Those are your needle movers. That's what you need to be spending your time working on. And I know that, by the end of the week, if you're not prioritizing this, you've made it to the end of the week and you're like, well, shit, I didn't do anything. I did not move the needle in my business. And then that tends to snowball. And then the next week's the same. And the next week's the same. And the next week's the same. You have to be very intentional about making the time for your needle movers or the needle will not move. That's what working on your business instead of in your business is all about. You've got to find the time for that. So whether you block an entire day on your calendar and you call it your CEO day and you're like, you know what, on Fridays, I don't do any meetings. I don't do client work. I only do my needle movers. That's a great way to do it. Maybe you can't dedicate an entire day because you don't have a traditional, 9 to 5, 40-hour work week. Maybe you're like, okay, I'm going to give myself an hour on Monday while my kid sleeps, and I'm going to give myself an hour on Wednesday night when my spouse is home while he's making dinner. I'm going to go and do these things. You can break down your activities into much smaller things like that too, but you need to really make sure that it is a priority and you need to put it in your calendar and prioritize it. Like, think of it as life-saving. Like, if you had kidney disease and you had to go for dialysis, I don't even know if those relate, but like, it is that critical. It is life-changing, life-altering. If you do not do this, things are not going well for you. That is the level of severity that you need to treat this activity with. Protect it with your life and be like, no, there is nothing. Save actual health crises that should come between you and doing your needle movers whenever you put them in your schedule, whether it's 15 minutes or 2 hours. If you commit to doing that, it needs to go in your calendar. Nothing can touch that time. And that is what you work on during that time. No negotiation. It's not, oh, well, I need to finish up this client work. Client work can wait. You need to prioritize moving your needle. And I am this adamant about it because I have spent 2 years telling myself that I'm going to do this. and then letting the day kind of just happen and then it doesn't. It'd be like, well, I blocked 2 hours for it, but I need to do this other thing, so I'm gonna do that instead. No, that is how I spent 2 years. I don't want to say I spent 2 years not doing anything in my business because I was. I just wasn't doing it as intentionally or consistently. And that's why I felt, and I just actually did a social media post that will come out before this episode, but about how I thought I'd be so much further in my business than I actually am because I didn't prioritize moving the needle in this way. It's just like, well, if it happens, great. If I find time, perfect. Whatever will be, will be. Sera, sera, sera. That's not the right expression. But whatever. The sentiment remains the same. And that's why this year I'm like, you know what? No, I'm committing to these things to achieve my goals. I don't want to go another year in my business and then look back and be like, well, I could have tried harder or I could have done these things differently. It'd be like, no, I told myself that this is what I'm doing. This is the goal that I have. I'm going to make this happen, and putting it in my calendar and protecting it like it is a child that is being born. It's got to happen. You don't always get to choose when. In this case, you're putting it in your calendar, but like, I'm going to be very intentional about my needle moving activities, and I'm going to do them consistently every week. And since the beginning of the year, I have launched a new resource. I have launched a course. I have revitalized a different resource. I have put, off the top of my head, I can't even think, but probably about 6 different email sequences in place in my business. I have automated more of like, I don't want to say the onboarding process because it's not really for clients, but I've integrated a lot of things on the back end with Zapier and in my CRM. I am like making it happen, guys, but only because I have been so intentional and strategic about it. And I want you guys to be able to do the same and have the same results and success that I'm feeling right now because you've done this. Have there been sacrifices? Yes. My income has been lower in the last few months than it's been probably since I started my business 2 years ago because I need to make time for these things. And that's a sacrifice that at this particular time I'm willing to make, knowing that, again, I have limited capacity before I go on maternity leave. And maybe that's not the case for everyone, but I guarantee you that you can find at least 1 to 2 hours in your work week that you can block out to work on whatever needle mover. And again, maybe you don't have 4 or 5 like I do. Maybe you have 1. You're just working on producing a podcast or releasing a course or creating a downloadable resource that you're going to sell on your website, and it'll just like do its thing in the background. Maybe you only have 1 needle mover that you're working on for an hour, but you need to pick what it is. You need to I like writing it down because writing it down for me is real, or it goes on a sticky note on my wall in one of the months so that I can track my progress towards that. And you are putting that time in your calendar. You're making it a legitimate appointment with yourself to do that thing so that you can reach your goal by whenever you set your goal. So like my things for March, like I'm recording this on the 25th. This episode will actually go out in April, but it was like the 15th of the month, guys, and I checked off all 4 of my needle movers for this month. So I needed to refresh my content catalyst and build, so I refreshed the actual resource. I redid the opt-in page, created a thank you page for it, and then I wrote a 6 email sequence. They call them tripwires in the marketing world. I call it an upsell sequence to sell one of the resources that I just put up on my website last month. So like that was a big project all in itself. I did that one. I launched my email marketing checklist. So again, created a full resource, built an opt-in page, built a thank you page, wrote the email sequence for it. So I did that process twice for my content and then for my email checklist. And then I also built all of the delivery emails for the 4 resources that I have on, 3 resources in the bundle that I have up on my website. And I wrote all of the abandoned cart sequences for them as well. So like those were very large projects that have been on my to-do list for quite a long time. And I checked all of them off within the first basically 2 weeks of the month because I was very intentional about what activities I needed to do in March to move the needle. So now, hopefully, I have the opportunity to generate residual income from the Content Catalyst resource, which is then got an email sequence to sell one of the downloadable resources in my shop. So I was like, okay, well, if I want to get this in place before I go on maternity leave, and then while I'm on maternity leave, I'll create social media content that will promote this, and then it will sell this thing on its own. And all I have to do is create the social media content. So I was very intentional about that as a needle mover for me for March. And then any additional time that I have, because, like I said, first 2 weeks, well, there's still 2 more weeks in March. I have more client work now, so I'm not doing as much needle moving, but I'm working on getting my email marketing course ready, which maybe we'll launch in April. Maybe we will launch in May. Maybe it'll launch in July. Who knows? I haven't really decided on that one yet. It's like I could have the course ready by the end of April if I kept going at the rate that I'm going. I just don't think I will have told enough people about it to generate any money from that. So that's why I'm not sure when I'm actually launching the email marketing course. But like that's my next needle mover. And then after I get that set and ready to go, I'm going to work on another one of those tripwires to sell another one of those resources from my shop because I've got 3 of them. So I want to have some of those things in place before I go on maternity leave. That is what's moving the needle in my business. That's what's making me feel successful and really prioritizing those activities. So that's kind of a behind the scenes peek at my current strategy. You guys see me look at my sticky notes on the wall all the time. This is why, because it's helping me stay focused on achieving my goals by telling me what my priorities are each month. And then I take those and I break them down into small tasks and I put them on my calendar and I block that time, and no one or nothing is allowed to get in the way of doing those things. So I hope that what works for me will also work for you. Really, again, the other kind of piece of this is not to take this giant momentous task of launching a new resource, which again requires the resource and 2 different website pages and the email sequence. It's breaking it down into all of these small tasks. It's like, okay, on Monday, I'm spending 20 minutes working with ChatGPT and we're going to choose a name for this resource. And then Tuesday, I'm going to spend half an hour and I'm going to design the title page and the intro page. And then maybe on Thursday or Friday, I'm going to spend an hour and I'm going to think through like what the 3 takeaways are to start prepping the opt-in page and get that messaging up on the opt-in page. It's really taking the big piece, chopping it up, and then putting those little smaller pieces onto the calendar in those small blocks. Like I don't take a full day to work on this stuff, but I do it, in 30 minutes here and an hour there. And a little bit day by day, I get to check all these little boxes off and I stay motivated to work towards the big goal of having residual income opportunities in place before I go on maternity leave. So I'm going to wrap this up now so that I can go and eat lunch because I'm starving. This is the second podcast I've recorded today and I've already had a coaching session and it's not even 1 o'clock. So we are on a roll with our needle movers. This one was my podcasting one. But thank you guys so much for listening if you've made it this far, and I will see you again next week in another episode of Go Get Great. If you have topics that you'd like me to discuss on this podcast, I am so open to it. Send me a message on Instagram and let me know what you want. Otherwise, I will just talk about things that I think are interesting, like moving the needle in my business. All right, guys, you have a great week, and I will see you back here next Tuesday for another episode of Go Get Great.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Go Get Great. I hope you found some useful tips and tricks that can help you make life and business work together. If what I said resonates with you, please share it on social media, and don't forget to tag at Brittany Miller's socials so that I can celebrate you for taking those first steps towards achieving greatness. Remember, success doesn't happen overnight. It takes dedication, hard work, and a lot of spirit. So don't be afraid to dream big and go after what you want. Keep striving for greatness. You get closer with every step forward, no matter how small they may seem. Until next time, go get great.